Okay. I guess I'll kick it off. Again, hi everybody. This is Rebecca Hutton from NIMS. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about building your own projects for NIMS credentials in what we're calling smart performance measures. So in order to kick this off, as many of you may know, this year is our 25th anniversary. So we've done several things throughout the year to celebrate that. This is one of those, and to kick off this new policy of allowing you to use your own projects, we decided to hold a competition to see, kind of who's got the best of the best out there. So we're going to kind of talk through a little bit about what smart performance measures are, how you design one, how you build one, and then we'll come back at the end and kind of talk about the competition itself, how you submit to participate in the competition, what the rules are, what the prizes are, how the projects will be judged, and all of that. So I see everybody's using the chat to kind of introduce yourselves. Please feel free to keep doing that. We'll use the chat function just to talk kind of to each other. If you have actual questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A, and we will answer the questions at the end of the webinar. So with that, I guess we can get started. Carla.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Carla Sikat, and I'm the project manager for NIMS. Thank you for joining the webinar today, and I'm super excited with all the enthusiasm that we've received since we announced the contest. So as Rebecca has mentioned, if you have questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and then we'll answer it. We'll try to answer it during the presentation, and then if not, we'll do that at the end of during the Q&A portion. And then we'll also be recording this webinar, and we'll send it to you together with the presentation deck. So I know some of you already have a project in mind. So we're here to help guide you on how you can get those projects polished so we can get it published for official credentialing use. So for the agenda for today, we'll start with what is performance measure, and then I'll proceed with the development process, and then Rebecca will explain the contest rules, and we'll answer your questions at the end of the presentation. So performance measure. So in essence, PM is a collection of resources and tools that makes and track performance. So this is used to validate whether a trainee can perform on the job. So how do we develop APM? How can we design it to truly validate a trainee's performance? So let's go through the process. So I'll go through each of these steps one by one, but these are the steps. So first step is you choose the role. So for this webinar, I'll use manual milling specialist as an example. All right, so we're picking manual milling specialist. So after you've done this, then you look up the performance agreement. So performance agreement defines the scope and limitation of a performance measure. So this ensures that your project is industry recognized and it's relevant to their community or in a company. So this is an example of a performance agreement, and this is the performance agreement for manual milling specialist. And once you've chosen your role, this is where you're gonna look up the performance agreement for your chosen roles. So after you've looked up your performance agreement, now you're gonna create a profile for your PM. So your PM is your PM's identity. So people can actually look it up and see which PM they can use to validate a performance. So here is an example of a profile for manual milling specialist. So after you've done that, now you're gonna review the standard of the role that you're creating a PM for. So the standard, so you need to look up and review the standard of the role you've chosen. This will help you understand the duties and know what is expected of them to perform once on the job. So let's take a look at manual milling specialist. So this is the outline of the standard for manual milling specialist. So you have the process for planning, work holding device alignment, and cutting tool assembly for machine setup. There's part loading, process execution for machine operations, deburring for bench working, standardizing measurement for quality control, and then lastly, lube and coolant for machine maintenance. Now, after you've done that, now you need to check the validation group. You can find this in the performance agreement, and the validation group tells you how the duties are grouped that must be performed in a single experience. So as you can see here, this is the validation group for manual milling specialist. There are two validation group for manual milling specialist. But it also tells you that you have the option to combine it if you can think of one comprehensive experience that will validate all the duties. So you can do that as well. So some things to remember about validation group. You can create a comprehensive single experience, or you can group it according to the validation group. So as long as all the duties are covered and in accordance to the performance agreement, then it should equate to a credential. Each of the boxes here, as you can see, they're an equivalent to a PM. So this is one whole PM, one whole experience, and these are two PMs to validate all the duties for this example, manual milling specialist. Now, this is also an example of a PM. These are PMs, however, it doesn't equate to a credential. So like for this one, for example, it doesn't validate all the duties. So even this whole thing is a PM, however, you won't get a credential for it. It doesn't equate for a credential. Now, this one validates all the duties, however, it's not in conformity with the validation performance agreement. So this also does not equate to a credential. So now that you've conceptualized your project, you need to start documenting your PM. So the thing that you need to keep in mind is that you have two audiences here when you're documenting your PM. So first is your instructor, which mainly is under the delivery. And then your other audience is your trainee, which is the project part. And we'll go through this in detail. And let's start with project first. So now you need to see this from a trainee's perspective. So think of this as if you are designing for IKEA. So when you send a project, when you buy something from IKEA, you get the instructions, and then the instructions tell you what you need to do, what is expected of you for this project for the PM, and what you're supposed to submit. There's tools and materials. However, this is implicit, because once a trainee do the performance, everything's provided for them. So the tools and materials tells you what tools they need, the application software if needed, the machines, and sources. Sources are the tools that they need to be able to like perform the job. So let's look at manual milling specialist. So this is the instruction for manual milling specialist. So just make sure that when you're writing this, your audience is your trainee. And when you're writing instruction, this is what they need to like perform, what is expected of them, what they need to submit. You're not gonna give them instruction on how to like do the actual project. Now this, so like I said earlier, the tools and materials are implicit. And the next thing is the resources. So resources are the things that will be provided to them so they can do the project. These are the drawing requirements, just to like keep in mind. I'm not gonna go through this. You'll see this after we send the slide to everyone. So these are some of the resources examples for projects. Now you will see the full list of the required document when you click this link over here. But some of those resources are engineering drawing, a 3D CAD step file, assembly drawing, diagram, setup sheet, tool list, and NC program. But this is for the trainee version. So that is for the project. Now let's look at documenting your PM for the delivery. So this one, your audience is the instructor. So the instructor can be the trainee or the evaluator, or they can be two different person, or they can be one. So the same as project, you have instruction, tools and materials, and resources. But this time your audience is the instructor. So now you're gonna tell them how are they supposed to deliver it? What do they need to deliver? How, and then how to evaluate and what to evaluate for. Tools and materials, now this is explicit because you need to like tell them what they need to provide, the infrastructure of the project, so they can prepare this for their trainees. Resources, these are also like some guides and resources, tools that you can provide for the trainer or the evaluator. So this is an example of instructions for delivery for milling, manual milling specialist. And this is the infrastructure list. So these are the list of tools and materials that they need to provide. So there's a workstation, work holding devices and accessories, hand tools, equipments, cutting tools. There's more, but I only attached the first page. Now, resources, these are some of the resources for delivery. There's the native CAD CAM part file, the native CAD CAM drawing, the step file, evaluation checklist, the NC program files for the evaluator version, some scoring lists, and engineering drawing with scored features. So again, for the full list of required documents, because there are different required documents per role, go to this link right over here. Now, in some instances, the tools and materials are not necessarily readily available. So there are things that the the trainer needs to prepare for. So think of it as if there's a project for a trainer that they need to prepare for. So this one is, so the trainer here are the project, the one performing the project to produce the things that are not commonly available. So instructions, so how to reproduce it and how to reproduce it, tools and materials they need, and resources. So this is optional. It depends on the project you have. So reproduction may not always be in the picture. So after you've done the documentation, you just need to review your PM, see if your PM validates all the duties of the role. Make sure that you try to test the project for accuracy, check your drawings, check your step files, and see if it makes sense. Put yourself on the shoes of your audience and see if your project is clearly understood. And then again, we provided the links here to help you get more details. And then once you've done this, you can go to this link so you can submit your PM to us. So for this contest, we'll start accepting submissions on November 2nd at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And then deadline will be on Friday, November 20th at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I'll hand over the next to Rebecca for contest rules.
Thank you, Carla. I do want to, before I go right into the contest rules, I know many of you on the call have probably delivered, NIMS certifications for a while using either our credentialing achievement records or CARs or using our projects. So this, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is us beginning to allow you to use your own parts and your own projects to validate performance to earn a NIMS credential. So it may seem a little bit more like there's a little bit more you have to do other than just provide a drawing, which is what you have for a lot of the NIMS parts now. The reason that we're doing that is because we want to make sure that the projects can be replicated and have a consistency of delivery. So in the past, some of you, may be aware that, for certain projects or parts, some schools may require students to do, all of the setup and loading the machine and getting everything ready, as well as milling a part, where another school, the instructor may do all that setup for the student and the student only has to mill the part. So in order to ensure that our credentials are more consistent in terms of what the end result means to both the candidate earning their credential and potential employers hiring that candidate, we are introducing this kind of PM concept to hopefully make that a little more uniform across the board. So for submitting projects, that's the same reason that we're requesting additional information like these infrastructure lists or instructions and things like that to ensure consistency of delivery. So why did we decide to do a contest instead of just opening it up? One, we know we have a lot of really great programs out there. and we want to highlight the best of the best of NIMS programs. We want to give you an option to use projects that are more relevant to your students, more relevant to your community, the employers in your community, give you more choices, hopefully make it easier for you to offer NIMS credentials to your students. And then we also want to begin to foster a community of sharing these kinds of projects amongst our schools and companies that we work with, so that newer instructors and newer programs can benefit from from some of the knowledge and experience of those of you that have maybe been around a little longer and done this a little bit longer. So with that, we can go on to the terms of the competition on the next slide. And basically with this, as with anything, you have to be 18 years old or older to enter a project. Since the purpose of this is to kind of create this library of performance measures, if you enter a project, you're kind of acknowledging that NIMS may use that project and allow other schools to use that project for credentials. We will give you credit for that. We're going to be announcing the winners in a public press release. You'll be highlighted on our website. So it's a great opportunity for you to showcase, what you're really doing well and what's working in your training. So we do want to be able to publish that. We may also, it's possible that you could have a part that you want to use for a CNC operator performance measure, but that part could also be used for maybe a CAM programming credential as well. So if we get some really exciting parts and some really exciting projects, we may want to, even if you only want to submit it and you only want to use it for one project, we may contact you and ask you if you mind if we modify it to use it for another related credential. Like I said, we will recognize you and acknowledge your organization, you as the designer, for any projects that you submit that we publish. You can use projects. I know a lot of schools, work with employers in your area, and you may have projects that are specific to employers or a group of employers in your community. Or if you're working on an apprenticeship program, you may have projects that you use for that. You can use those kinds of projects for this competition. However, obviously it can't contain any proprietary information or trade secrets from those employers. And if you're using something that has their name or logo on it, we have to have their written consent to be able to accept that project. And then whoever is submitting the project must be authorized to commit to these terms and conditions, basically. So we can go on to the next slide. So that's just kind of the, I guess, nitty gritty, the fine print. Now we'll talk about kind of how the contest is structured. There's 4 categories. The first 3 are machining. So we have a new 5-axis standard that we came out with last year, I believe. And so we will be introducing credentials for that next year. So we are accepting projects in these 3 categories. We are also including some of our manual machining credentials, the most popular ones. And then our CNC 3-axis and 2-axis programs. So you may realize that some of the names of these look a little different than some of our existing credentials. We will be making a few modifications in the coming years to some of our credentials, but I think the main change here would be the CNC milling specialist and turning specialist. That will sort of be replacing the setup, programming, and operations credentials. So if you have projects that you're currently using for that, they will likely be applicable for the specialist roles here. So now we can go on and look at the ITM roles for industrial maintenance. Basically, it's all of the projects except for welding and piping. So again, you see the specialist terms here, but these will be synonymous with the existing credentials that don't have that specialist term on them. So if you have projects that you're using for those, they will certainly fit here, and the standards will help guide you in how to organize those and how to submit them. So we can go on to the next slide. So your submission requirements, again, the main things here are the PM profile, which is just sort of a high-level narrative, as Carla showed you, and then the project itself, whatever instructions a student would need to be able to perform that. And when you're thinking of that, as Carla said, think of it from the eyes of the trainee, what they would need to be given, but also think of it as you want to provide everything that someone would need to be able to replicate the project exactly as you would deliver it without your intervention. So they need to have all the documentation, instructions that they would need to be able to replicate it without you having to be present to walk them through it. So that's kind of what we're looking for here. If you have questions about this, our team is going to be available to you to help. Like I said, I'm sure a lot of you already have projects that you've been itching to use for NIMS credentials. So hopefully this will be relatively easy to pull the materials together. We can go on to the next slide. Eligibility for this particular competition, we are only opening it up to educational organizations, not to companies or other credentialing organizations. So independent school districts, public and private high schools, public and private community and technical colleges, those are the kinds of organizations that are eligible. If you have questions about eligibility, again, you can reach out to our team at any time and we can help you decipher that. And we can go on to the next slide. Scoring. So how are we going to evaluate this? How are we going to figure out who the winner is? So for each category, each project will be evaluated based on its own merit. So it's not necessarily for the overall winners. It's not necessarily a comparison from this project to that project. But we are looking for, you can see here, by the weighting of the points, creativity is a big one. We want, what's the appeal to students? That's one of the criticisms we've gotten for NIMS projects in the past for our off-the-shelf parts, is that they're boring. Students don't like them. They don't mean anything. So we're looking for creative projects here. And then also alignment to the standard. Carla showed you that in order to be valid for a NIMS credential, the project has to validate all the performance duties for however they're grouped in the performance agreement. So what that means is, if let's say there's 5 duties that are in a group, a performance measure can't have 5 separate little projects that someone does to demonstrate that they can do those 5 duties independently.
Are they done?
They have to be grouped together in a way where the student is performing it from beginning to end. So it's more of a comprehensive proof that they can perform this role, because the point of the credential is to validate someone's ability to perform the complete job role. So that's why we've grouped them together. Sometimes, it doesn't make sense for all of the duties in a standard to be grouped together. So that's why there's different groups. So projects will be evaluated to make sure that they meet that. The accuracy, making sure that the drawings meet the identified standard, which we didn't go into great detail on that here, but there is a slide that tells you what standard. And if you go to the submission requirements section, which is also linked in this presentation, you will see all of those standards identified there. And then utility is another scoring criteria. So, there can be really creative and exciting projects that don't have utility, but there can also be some really cool projects that, that whatever the student is making can be used for other purposes. Completeness, obviously making sure that all the required elements are submitted. Again, not to beat a dead horse, but we want to make sure that whatever we're given can be easily replicated. So if a student in Maine performs this project and a student in Iowa performs this project, the experience is the same. Practicality, so this is more the ease of that distribution. So I know we have wide variety of schools with a wide variety of types of equipment and resources. So we want to encourage, especially in 5-axis, obviously you have to have a 5-axis machine. So we won't be counting off points for things like that, but we want to make sure it's not so complex that it's impossible for anybody else to deliver this project. And then the industry vote. So what this means is we're asking you to go to your employer community, and many of you, I'm sure already work with employers in your community. And if you can get them to endorse your project, we'll give you 2 points for each of those company endorsements up to a maximum of 10 points. So that would be 5 employees. So another kind of purpose of us allowing you to use your own performance measures is to make your students' credentials and experience more relevant to the employers in your community. So that's why we're including the industry vote in the future when we do these kinds of competitions. We hope to open it up to public voting and allow that, but at this time this is how we're capturing that kind of industry input. So we encourage you to try to get that and show the support of the employers in your community. So I think this is relatively clear. Again, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A and we'll answer them as we go. The submission dates. So the competition begins on Monday, November 2nd. That's just a few days away. And the submission deadline is November 20th at 5 p.m. All times are Eastern. We have a panel of judges who, we have a panel for machining and a panel for industrial maintenance. So they will be reviewing the projects between the 20th and December 11th when we will announce the winners. We will announce the winners to the winners first, and then we'll announce to the community at large. As we said, there will be an announcement, a public announcement of all the winners. He will be recognized on our website. So that's kind of the timeline for that. We encourage you to submit as early as you can. So if there is something, missing, or if you have questions, we have time to work with you to still allow you to meet the submission deadline. And while we are doing this competition now, this is going to be the same process for, if you want to design your own performance measures and you miss the deadline, it doesn't mean that you can't use your own performance measure. It just means you won't be eligible to win the competition, but you can still submit performance measures. We'll be opening up a process for that after the competition for people to submit their performance measures throughout the year. So with that, we can go on to the next slide and talk about the prizes. So we will be giving out prizes for each of those 4 categories. So 5-axis, CNC machining, 2- and 3-axis CNC machining, manual machining, and industrial maintenance. So each of those 4 categories will have a winner. The winner of the whole category will get a $5,500 annual credentialing subscription for your school. If you already have one, it will just be applied to your next renewal, and that fee will be waived for you. And then if we get, I anticipate, based on a lot of you filled out the interest form, and I appreciate that. Thank you. That helped us kind of gauge what to expect. And so if it looks like we can expect several submissions for some of our more popular roles, like CNC milling operator or the manual milling specialist. So for those categories where we have multiple submissions, we will be doing a best, sort of a best of each credential. So the winner of that particular role will get a $500 credentialing voucher that can be applied at any time throughout the coming year. And then every winner will also get a copy of our new book, The Ultimate Guide to Enhancing Your Training Program. This is something we have used with an employer engagement a lot, and has really helped give employers and educators insight into their training program and how it relates to kind of the NIMS system and the NIMS world. So those are the prizes for the category. We can go on to the next slide. We will have a grand prize overall winner. So this will just be the single project from any category that gets the most points. We'll also receive the $5,500 annual credentialing subscription. Plus, we have a new data and reporting tool that we are going to be releasing. That will be an annual subscription usage. That's a $2,500 annual subscription. And basically what it is it allows you to input data for your students' performances and provides you detailed reports on each aspect of how it's going. We've used it in, it's sort of based on our, how we score, you know, like our Skills USA competitions. We've worked with Department of Defense on some competitions, and it's based on that sort of process. So the winner will have a choice of either receiving an annual subscription for that, or if your program is not accredited and you would like it to be accredited, we will waive the fees for that. And again, that'll be your choice. And then, of course, as I said, every winner gets a copy of the guide to enhancing your training program. Then we can go on to the next slide. That will be ready for Q&A. I do see we've gotten a few questions here. Let's see, I'll kind of go through these questions. Is NIMS getting rid of the 2 manual training certifications and combining them into one? We are keeping the old certifications that we have for right now. We will eventually begin to phase some of them out based on popularity, and we'll be introducing some of these new roles. However, for this competition, we're just focusing on those 3 manual machining roles that we expect will stick around for quite some time. Can a PM project have multiple pieces or parts that comprise the project, or is it intended to be a single part project? It can have multiple pieces or parts. It just depends on how the experience is performed by the student or the trainee. So as long as it meets those grouping requirements and their experience includes everything in one group, then yes, it can include multiple pieces or parts. And in the future, you know, we can even envision a scenario where you might have one part that could essentially meet the requirements for 2 credentials. You know, you could have one part that has both milling and turning on it, and as long as the experience meets the requirements of both credentials, that a student could effectively earn both credentials making one part. So yes, it could be either way, depending on how you put it, put the project together. Can students submit projects, or is it only instructors? We are okay with students submitting projects as long as they are 18 years or older. Our intention in this and our expectation was that it would mostly be instructors or schools submitting projects, but we will allow students to do it, and we're hoping to have some specialized student-only competitions in the future where students can compete against other students for designing projects. But we would certainly, if you have students that are designing projects, we would love to get those submissions. That would be great. So now that we are, those are the only questions I see. If you have more, please feel free to enter them into the question bar down there. Right now, if you can, you should be seeing a poll pop up on your screen. Basically, we're just asking you, now that you've heard kind of what this means, you know, a lot of you did submit our initial interest survey and said you might be interested in it. So now we're asking, now that you know what it entails and what's required, are you still interested? So if you can just take a couple minutes and answer that survey, just click the button. We would appreciate that. We'd love to know how you feel about that now that we've given you all the details. So we'll give you a few minutes there to vote. It doesn't look like I'm seeing any more questions. So hopefully, I mean, I hope you're still excited about this. I think, you know, we're kind of moving into a new era for NIMS. We want to make credentialing easier for you and more, you know, relevant to your students and to your community. And we think this is a good way to do that. But we also, like I said, want to kind of expand your reach and allow you to share your expertise and your, you know, the cool projects that you and your students are working on with the community at large. I'm unable to see if the poll, how the poll is doing, if people are completing it. But we'll give you just a couple more minutes and then. Carla, do you have anything else to add? Did I leave anything out?
I think we got everything covered. So like I said, we have all the detailed information. If you go through our website and click this link, performance measure competition, to like see all the details, submission requirements. We also have some templates that you can use. You can also find it on our website.
Okay, well, with that, thank you everyone for attending. I see one last question coming in. Where can a project designer find the standards associated with each credential? If you go to our website and look under the standards button, you'll find them all there. That is also linked here in this presentation, which we'll be sending out to everyone who attended or registered for the webinar. The recording will be sent out. Give us, you know, probably till the end of the day or first thing tomorrow. We'll send out the recording and the slides. So you'll have all the links which are live in this presentation, and you'll have the recording if you, you know, need to go back and get a little detail. Or obviously, you know, you can reach out to us. Our email here on the screen, support@nims-skills.org. If you have any questions or, you know, if something doesn't make sense when you get started working on a project, just reach out to us or give us a call. And I think with that, thank you very much for attending. We'll give you back a half an hour of your day. I hope that we get some fun projects submitted, and we'll look forward to seeing what you guys have for us. So thank you very much.